Okay, Michael, I can see you there. How you doing, bro? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, how are you, Jonah? Onyema, Onyemechi.
You're muted.
Mag.
Sir?
Okay.
How are you, my brother, sir? Nice to meet like-minded brothers here.
Oh, it's
Wonderful.
a pleasure, my brother. Well,
pleasure.
you are the ones we've been waiting for. So now you're
sorry.
here.
Yeah.
I guess the sister could start now and then.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just running from another class. Yes. Yeah,
I can understand.
Yeah. Christina, you're muted.
Yes. Okay. So I think we'll start now, and then I'll wait for the other panelists to join from the US. So I'll be watching out when she will come in. So I want to welcome all of you to this conversation, online conversation on the crisis we are passing through in Nigeria. And it's my pleasure to welcome the panelists and the participants from different parts of the globe. So first of all, the platform I'm using to do this program is called CIPN, which is Christian Igbo Professional Network, Frankfurt and Main in Germany, which is a non-governmental organization founded by concerned Ndi Igbo, who are both professionals and academics in Germany for the advancement of the rights of the oppressed and the marginalized, and of course for the promotion of Igbo language and culture and diaspora. So with that, I also want to welcome my panelists today. First of all, we have Dr. Emmanuel Franklin Obunweze. He's a human rights lawyer, a philosopher, and a social ethicist. He's presently a senior research fellow and director for genocide prevention in Africa at the Christian Solidarity International, Switzerland, and former director of the African Department at the International Society for Human Rights, based in Frankfurt, Germany. Dr. Obunweze is also a founding member of the CIP and Frankfurt and Main in Germany. Please help me to welcome Dr. Obunweze. Our next panelist, who is yet to sign in, is Dr. Carol Ujoma Njoko, who is a Catholic nun of the Congregation of the Daughters of Mary, Mother of Mercy. She is a lecturer at the Department of International and Comparative Law, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Enugu campus. She holds a PhD in war narratives, gender representation and human rights from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Her research areas have won her scholarship with Godesera Fellowship 2016, visiting fellow in Michigan 2016, and Marquette University 2017, NGO representative to the ECOSOC. Currently, Dr. Njoko is a researcher at the Golden Gate University School of Law, San Francisco. She is the founder and director of the Conflict and Gender Rights Research Forum, US, and a legal assistant to 2 international humanitarian agencies. Please help me to welcome in absentia, Dr. Carol Ujoma Njoko. Our next panelist is Dr. Michael Onyebuchi Eze. He's a graduate fellow, Trinity Hall University of Cambridge, a docent in political theory, University of Amsterdam, associate faculty, Colorado Christian University, a former visiting scholar at the Center for African Studies, Stanford University, and a research associate at the Martin Luther Jr. Research and Education Institute, Stanford. He was a Stiftung MacArthur Foundation Research Fellow at the Kulturwissenschaftliche Institute for Advanced Studies in Humanities in Essen, Germany, from 2006 to 2009. And he has published many academic works, including 2 books, Particular to mention is the politics of history in contemporary Africa. Please, again, help me to welcome Dr. Eze to this conversation. Our final panelist is Jonathan Chimaconam. He holds his PhD in philosophy and a senior lecturer at the University of Pretoria, South Africa, presently a senior research fellow at the Center for Interdisciplinary and Intercultural Philosophy, Ebhard Karls University of Tübingen, Germany. He was a senior lecturer at the University of Calabar, Nigeria, for years, and has research interests in various areas. He is a winner of Jens Jacobsen Research Award for Outstanding Research in Philosophy by the International Society for Universal Dialogue. He was also recently a recipient of the University of Pretoria's Exceptional Young Researchers Award 2021. He's an African philosophy area editor in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Dr. Chimaconam has published wide, particularly to mention is his work in Zoologic. Please help me to welcome Dr. Chimaconam to this conversation. Okay, to our topic, I mean, most of us have heard in different dimensions, in different areas, in different social media outlets. So it's not hidden that Nigeria is in turmoil. And it depends on how we understand this situation. So please, in your recent interview, Dr. Bumweze, you warned that Nigeria might be heading towards genocide. Can you share with us what made you to say that?
Oh, well, I welcome my brothers and sisters to the conversation, particularly Dr. Eze in the Netherlands, and Jonathan from Pretoria, who is presently in Germany. Well, I traveled to Nigeria on the instance of this Christian Solidarity International, where I'm presently managing and directing genocide prevention in Africa. I traveled to Nigeria to see things for myself. And on getting there, one sees that the state has lost every legitimacy. And there are clamorings everywhere across the board. The Nigerians have lost hope and they have lost confidence in the government of the day. And they are now escaping into their tribal, what I call archipelagos, where everybody is in an echo chamber, echoing what he or she wants to hear. And it is getting to a dangerous level because the amount of arms and ammunition on the Nigerian streets today in these tribal enclaves is getting to a very dangerous dimension, which is to say that the state has lost a monopoly of violence across board. Boko Haram is still an insurgency in the northeast of Nigeria. In the southwest, the Yorubas are clamoring for an Oduduwa nation. The Igbos, through IPOB or whatever, are clamoring for the state of Biafra. And in the Niger Delta, they are not left out of the whole problem. They are clamoring for, a restructured Nigeria. If you go to southern Kaduna, it's still the same. In the middle belt of Nigeria, it's still the same. So, and the amount of arms that are coming into Nigeria from various entry points is so very disturbing that if care is not taken, and the rhetoric accompanying these things shows you that Nigerians are even tired of staying together. So, and that was why I warned. The indices I saw on the ground point to an imminent genocide. And if nothing is done to arrest the situation, done quickly, Nigeria will be a field of blood. And then brothers are going to get up and kill their their neighbors and their brothers based on what they feel is that the other person is the order. That's the issue we're talking about today. So the indices are not so very good. That's what one can see on the ground in Nigeria. There is a failure of governance. There is poverty. There is hopelessness. What the Germans call Perspektivlosigkeit. That is, the Nigerians don't have any perspective, Nigerian young people. And you have to understand that 70% of Nigerians are young people under the age of 30. And this is a time bomb. And these guys are unemployed. So this is a time bomb that, if allowed to explode, will drown the country. It will be a deluge of blood. And that's what I'm afraid of. And that's why I said that was what empowered my outburst that Nigeria is a genocide waiting to happen. So we really need to do something, and do something real quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And indeed, almost all the cases of genocide appear to have one thing in common. The victims were killed because they are seen as different, not just because they are different, but how this difference or differentiation is instrumentalized through the processes of ordering. Dr. Chimaconam, what is your perspective on ordering?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Christiana Edika. First and foremost, I'd like to appreciate you for coming up with this wonderful program. And I equally appreciate my co-panelists and other friends and colleagues who are here to listen to us and rub minds together. Ordering is a very dangerous phenomenon, sort of stratification of identities into in and out groups, which essentially is something that occurs as a result of miseducation of consciousness. I do not want to talk about the under-education or even lack of education thereof, but miseducation of consciousness is something that I feel is very central to the emergence of ordering in any context, be it religious, ethnic, forms of political, and what have you. Like we have in Nigeria today. What do I mean by miseducation of consciousness? For us to have a clear perspective to my understanding of ordering, I am talking about a situation where people are educated consciously or unconsciously to not to have a proper understanding of what it means to be a human being amongst other human beings, what it means to be a human being in the world. Rather, those who are plagued by this mindset called ordering are those who have a fragmentary understanding of what it means to be a human being at a particular corner of the world. The world is so big. And if someone who lives in a world as big as ours has an understanding of what it means to be a human being in just a small corner of that world, then you'll be in a position to understand the danger which that poses for that human being, that inevitably by the mechanism of modernity and the matrix of economic and political matrices that connects all of us, human beings from different parts of the world, together. And that individual who understands what it means, has this skewed understanding of what it means to be a human being in a particular tiny corner of the universe. When the part of this individual crisscrosses with the parts of other individuals from different other parts of the world, you will begin to understand the sort of crisis, conflict, violence. Some of them could escalate to genocidal proportions that will inevitably arise. And as a result, we must understand ordering as a disease of the mind, a disease of the mind, a very strong disease of the mind. And be able to understand that those who are plagued by this disease occupy a very unique position because they really don't understand that they are plagued by this disease. And I'd like to stop there and allow you to proceed. We still have a lot of time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Chimaconam, for that perspective on the impacts of ordering and then how it functions. Dr. Eze, do you share the same view? Having engaged yourself in in political science and also understanding the polity of Nigeria. How does othering shape Nigerian polity?
Yeah, thank you very much. First off, I want to correct, I think you used an old profile that is outdated for my introduction. So first, I'm no longer
if I asked you for it, you didn't
I
say
forgot, I've been so busy. So I'm no longer, I left to Amsterdam and Cambridge a long time ago. So I'm a professor of philosophy at Leiden University. That's where I'm teaching now. So my academic home is in Leiden, not in Amsterdam or whatever. So it's a long time I left that place. So just
if you had
just now I'm in Leiden University. That's where I'm teaching. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this is a very interesting. Thank you for bringing this together. And I like to make a kind of connection between Jonathan and Onyemechi. I shared the same. First of all, I want to say that I share the same pessimism with Onyemechi, but also understanding that the basic reason for this differentiations, this kind of suspicion, coming from the idea of ordering. Let me try, and I'm a historian of nationalism and social change. So I'm going to draw upon my own studies and research in the case of Nigeria. So first of all, I'm going to make a provocative statement that whether you're Igbo or Hausa or Yoruba or Fulani, whatever ethnicity you become, we're all casualties of Nigeria. So you recognize that whether you're a Fulani headsman or whatever, we're all casualties. And immediately, I have a hypothesis that, unfortunately, like Onyemechi said, there's certain kind of tendency towards ethnic enclave that goes towards ethnic cleansing, sort of. But I think if we problematize it more, one might need to recognize that it fundamentally boils down to the whole idea of Nigeria. Whether I speak of ordering, or whether I talk about ethnic cleansing, or whether I talk about what I would rather call proto-nationalism, which I think is more fundamental than even the ethnicity. It has to do with the very idea of Nigeria as a state. And I say that Nigeria does not exist, never existed in the first place. I think the conversation will have to do that there are no Nigerians. It's just like Nigeria, in my view, is like a large geographical prison yard, a kind of a large concentration camp, where you put people who do not have anything in common, they don't want to stay together, and you force them to stay together. And so, unlike other nation states, modern nation states, that kind of self-determination will to be part of a state. The people in that geographical area do not want to be part of it. So you see that Nigeria exists because there are guns pointed at people's head. You stay inside this geographical zone. So that's fundamentally, Nigeria does not exist except by way of forceful that people do not willingly want to stay together, forced to stay together. So the challenge is that it doesn't exist in the first place. So we have to recognize that it never existed. And so the trauma will have to be located in history. We have to go back to history for the fundamental, because let's assume that, okay, the Yorubas separate, Igbo separates, and they also separate. You would recognize that the same problem that was following Nigeria from independence will still follow through even when they become independent. Because if even among Igbos, you see that this kind of internal racism within ethnicity, that you are from Onsoka, you are from this, you are from this. People still, you see that, oh, it's our tongue. You see that it still goes back again to the genesis of having.
I think the network is hanging. Onyebuchi, have we lost you to things that are not under our control and things that we wouldn't accept willingly, of course. I would have loved to ask him a question if he had finished what he was saying. While we wait on him, I would want to ask Jonathan and Chimaconam a question with regards to what the provocative thing that he just said. And that is that belonging to families, we didn't willingly choose to belong to families. And we didn't even choose to belong to the race we belong to. There are many things we didn't choose willingly to be part of, but nature made us to find ourselves in, okay, he's back. Okay, Onyebuchi, conclude your statement, then I can now ask the question I want to ask following your provocative statements. Your audio is off.
When Onyebuchi mentioned monopoly of violence, that was key to the point, because the question is that the state only existed insofar as that's monopoly of violence, not because people believed or subscribed to the idea of Nigeria. And so when they lost that monopoly of violence, of course, this is begin to fracture. So, and then coupled with elitist racism. And so it gets more complicated. So, but let's historicize the challenges first. And then
okay, before we come to the history, before we come to the idea of history, let's first of all focus on a statement you made. And that is that you said that people are not willing. That is, you brought people who are not willing to be together. And I was saying that there are many things we didn't choose in life. There are many things that just happened that we have to find ourselves. Although even that we are given birth to by our parents, I'm sure many of us may choose not to be born in a particular place at a particular time by a particular parents. Don't you think that there are moments when something that we can't achieve, what we don't have through nature, that we cannot have that by our own efforts? So why do you think that achieving Nigeria as a work that has to be done together is something that cannot be achieved? Because if you say that forcing them together is like, okay, they cannot choose also to be together. So what would you say about that?
Nationalism is an invention of modernity. Nationalism is made by man. It's not natural. Yeah. It's not natural. Every modern nation state has to consciously create a national imaginary to which the people subscribe to. The failure of Nigeria is that since independence, since 1960, we've had a group of elitist racism. So you have to make this distinction between elitist racism. You see that all these governors, they're the same people. So you see, if you bring governors of Enugu, Anambra, whatever, they're the same people in Sokoto. They speak to each other, dine together, they live together. We have their kids at Cambridge, at Oxford, and Stanford. They have the same people. So elitist racism has the people. So the thing that every nation is the conscious imagination of people who willingly make a promise, they decide to live together. None was ever happened in the case of Nigeria. And it was easy because, let me just say the last thing, Nigeria as we have today, as a matter of fact, is still a colonial state. It is not a nation, it is a colonial state. What happened was transfer of battle, transfer of power to the same colonial state. So what we have is still the same method of colonial divide and rule system. So Nigeria is still divide and rule that happened under colonialism. It's still what we have. So what we have is colonialism run by African elites. That is why it's not a nation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Can I help Onyebuchi a little bit, because I wanted to disagree with him initially. My disagreement was on the fact that every nation state is must be created by this, or they must create a conscious imaginary. He is right there. That was where he escaped my gunshot at the moment, because there are many nations. Nations could be created by conquest. Even the German state, the Germanic tribes, were welded together by the fiat of Karl the Charlemagne, Karl the Great. So, but these people, with time, evolved the system that they were able to create this conscious imaginary. And then that was how the state evolved. The Germans now, people who were from the Swabia and from the northern and every other part of Germany, they can now see themselves as Germans. Like he said, the failure of Nigeria remains the fact that Nigeria started as a business. And then all over Africa, that's what we have seen. There is this elitist colonialism. The white men on departing handed over to their houseboys, and their houseboys became the new elite. And then they know each other, they intermarry among themselves, and they have been, it's just another colonialism with black faces. Our black brothers are now the new colonial masters. That's the failure of Nigeria. Achebe summarized it. Our trouble is basically and squarely the failure of leadership, because this leadership failed initially. That's why we are having these problems today. And like Onyebuchi said, even if you attain Biafra tomorrow, even if you attain Oduduwa Republic tomorrow, the same teething problems that has followed Nigeria will follow us to these enclaves, because we have not been able to actually sit down and theorize Nigeria, think about what we want as a people. So this intellectual deficit will follow us into all these enclaves that we are going to fashion out tomorrow, even if we are to depart. I will let others contribute.
Okay. Dr. Chimaconam, what do you have to say with this perspective on nationalism and the willingness of people to build nationalism? Of course, the extension of colonial enterprise by the form of a transferred power to African political elites.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me begin by saying that my co-panelists have thrown up quite a lot of things, very insightful discussions regarding nationalism, the constitution of nationalism, or that mindset thereof. I agree with both of them at some point, but there are also other issues I feel that they are really being too charitable in discussing. For example, Michael talked about Nigerian elites and all that. They are really a college of elites in Nigeria. Elites are people with special abilities, distinguished, intellectual, and otherwise. There are no such people. What we have is a cult of ignoramuses who rule the best of us. We've allowed the worst of us to rule the best of us in the country. That is part of why we are where we are at the moment. And Franklin also talked about this problem of leadership, quoting Achebe. I agree again with that. That's true, but we also have problem of followership. The college of leaders cannot, it's not within their power to completely and comprehensively, as they do in today's Nigeria, run away with this sort of folly, that is characterize the leadership in question without the effective participation of followership in making that possible. We have a foolish majority. We have to understand that when you have a class of leaders in a country, you require an enlightened citizenry to be able to jolt them to action, put them to shape, challenge them, check them. We don't have that. And that is why the leadership gets away with whatever they do. But I want to underscore the point that what we have is a cult of ignoramuses. These are foolish people who are not enlightened. To say the least, they're not enlightened, they are foolish, they're ignoramuses. How do you know that? An enlightened leadership would be able to see the future consequences of today's actions and inactions. They don't see that. When they loot all the money they loot and then stash it away in foreign banks, and then they have a problem and they can't even access that money, and then a new government takes over, and then one or two of the foreign government returns a part of that money, and they loot the same money and take it back again to those banks. What are you talking about? We are talking about people who can see beyond their noses. And that is where enlightenment begins. And take it to the followership. You've got to have a crop of followership that can ask questions, make informed decisions, reason for themselves. We don't have that. So what do you expect? The government we have in Nigeria is the best that we can have at the moment. And I make no exceptions with regards to those who have gone to school. I often say that fluency in a certain colonial language and big certificates are not the same with the ability to think and express new thoughts. Okay, so we have many so-called educated people with big certificates, professors in their ranks, who again are not really men that are and women that are above average intelligence.
Let me intervene here.
Okay, just we take it one by one, and Onyebuchi, is like you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I want to intervene here. I think I want to bring what Onyebuchi said, and I want to qualify elite here. Not necessarily because we all had elite, not in that kind of term, but in terms of political elite. And let me qualify it here because it's so important because first of all, you have to make a distinction between a kind of political authority possessed by politicians in Nigeria, distinguishing between de jure and de facto, one who has actual power, one who has constitutive power. What I mean here is that we live in a space of politics. And so that we're dealing about politics. So, and politics is not about morality. Politics really care about morality. It's about power and domination and control here. And so when I did mention elite is that, over time, not necessarily in terms of, I mean, all these guys, some of them are educated. At Cambridge, I saw their kids at Cambridge. I mean, I taught some of them. At Stanford, I saw their children at Stanford. And these are the same people, they get the best education, and they come back to Nigeria and they continue and perpetuate the domination over time. So what I mean now, when I mentioned, about the divide and rule is this, that a man who is hungry, is not going to care about Aristotle or think about anybody, think about the future. He wants to survive. So what's what I call survival politics. And so when it comes to ground politics and stuff like that, they privatize the economy. They privatize violence, the people, agents of violence, precisely because having access to resources, privatizing the agents of violence, the police and army and economy, no matter what you say, no matter how much you speak English, whatever the case may be, it doesn't have any effectivity. So it's about you vote, okay, whatever. People who control economy and agents of violence are not going to control. And it's been like that for the past 30, 40 years. We have had military coup d'etat. These same people, they were generals, they retire, they go to become politicians as well. They own the police, they own all these people. And so that's what I mean by elitist racism, economy, and access to those people.
Thank you very much. And we'll listen to Franklin and then we'll go on with what we need to, there are more to talk about. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that's the beauty of having brilliant minds on a table discussing Nigeria. We all agree. This is why I say that Achebe is one of our greatest. What Onyebuchi submitted finally is what Achebe said. These guys have monopolized everything: the economy, the agents of violence, the instruments of state, the apparatuses of state. So Achebe wrote it in 1983. The trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely the failure of leadership, that our leaders have failed. They don't know what personal example and personal responsibility means. So all they do is to accumulate for themselves the acquisitive tendency and then stash for themselves and for their kids, forever, without even knowing that if the state doesn't function, every means and material that you acquire will someday fall into disrepute. So, for example, I remember when Buhari came to power in 1983, they changed money, and almost all the politicians that stole money, the naira they had became useless overnight. Why was that the case? Because the society, that the power they had, they never used it to stabilize the society in such a way that even if they retire from office, that the system will still work to protect them and their interests. But once the system is changed, then every means and material you've acquired for yourself could tomorrow be worthless to you and to the kids that you acquire in those resources. So it's simply, like Onyebuchi said, this is the elitist racism. Our leaders don't regard the followers as anything. And come to think of it, what's the first thing they do when they come to power? Is to destroy our educational system. You and I are abroad today, contributing our best to enrich the societies we all will live, because Nigeria never offered us the opportunity. They destroyed the educational system that we are here. Onyebuchi is teaching white people in Leiden. You are in South Africa contributing yours. I am here. Okay, so, and what has Nigeria offered us? Nothing. But we are ready to offer to Nigeria what Nigeria never offered us, but we don't even get the place to stand to do that. So, and that boils down to what Achebe said. It is our leadership, because the leadership creates the essential platform We are the followership should follow them and then make the society bloom for everybody. Singapore is a perfect example. Germany is a perfect example. Many other countries are perfect examples of that. It was their leaders that created the kind of society they wanted to have. And then that's the vision. That's what the leader is. He has the vision. And then the followers are there to follow him. Followership. We follow like sheep. That's all I have to contribute to this for now. Let others.
And I share Jonathan's anger. By the way, no, I need to say that I share his anger. I mean, he thinks we are too generous. He pushes it to the extreme. I think he thinks we're too generous. He really wants to state the fact that this is really wrong. I share that sentiment, by the way. I do share that sentiment to some extent. So just to be clear, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes we need to call the issue its name, I mean, for it to be what it is. And then now we are talking about leadership. I need to come back to why we are here and how this leadership connects itself to ordering in the context of the diversity that we find in Nigeria. So many people believe that unity in diversity is a source of strength. But then the differentiation or diversity can also constitute a source of challenge, like we are having it in Nigeria. If you have bloody politicians who don't care about the people, but how do we connect this thing to ordering that is shaping the polity today? Okay, so and how this multi-ethno-religious diversity is being manipulated to legitimize violence. I will throw that question again back to you, Dr. Chimaconam.
Thank you very much. At the very outset, I did indicate that ordering is a disease of the mind, largely orchestrated by miseducation of consciousness, and this is a phenomenon that can be traced down to the family units, to the district, the villages, before the school system, the churches, and what have you. The individual human being that ventures to the society to have an association or relationship of any kind with other human beings, have it in mind to advance its interests in pulling the energy and resources together and relationship, what have you. And this can be writ large to the various sections of the Nigerian society, ethnic, religious, and what have you. Your question is, how does the leadership issue we're talking about connect with the ordering that we experience in different forms in Nigeria today? Now, it is the responsibility of leadership, and here I agree with Onyemechi, of course, that policies drive institutions, and these policies are to be drafted by leadership, sort of. And that's failure to draft these very useful, good quality policies and then implement them to the letter can be pointed out as being responsible for some of the problems Nigeria is experiencing, one of which is ordering in different forms. I agree with that. Okay, but I am hesitant to place that responsibility, the challenge we have and the problems that characterize our country today squarely on leadership as Achebe did. Okay, because that would be absorbing myself from that responsibility. I am partly responsible, and so are all of us, and so are the people in the villages, so are people in the markets, different level strata of the Nigerian society. They are all responsible. What is the goal of electing leaders, so to speak? Let us forget the era of the military junta, where they forcibly take over power and dictate for everybody via decrees. Let's keep that aside. Let's talk about democracy. All right. How should that work? The people elect their leaders, and the process is clear with responsibilities that the people should shoulder in whipping up the consciousness of the leadership to do what they want them to do. Are the Nigerian populace really capable of that? That's $1 million question, and we've got to be brutal in stating the facts. They are not. They are not. Okay, and that accounts for why qualitatively nonsensical people and people with really very demented ideas and mindsets emerge as leaders of our people, of our country. That is why they emerge, because the followership that should elect quality leadership are incompetent at doing that. All right.
Well,
now,
the question remains: have Nigerians ever elected any government? Because Onyebuchi made a very salient and important point.
Yes.
It's still the same thing, because what we have in there, we all know that the Germans call what we have Schein Demokratie. Schein Demokratie means it looks like a democracy, but it isn't. And we all know that. My brother, I share your anger. We all are angry about the state of affairs in Nigeria. But the major thing is Nigeria. Achebe said it. I will always refer to that guy. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian climate. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian person, because we can see it. Nigerians all over there in every diaspora are powerhouses of innovation, knowledge, and enterprise. But why isn't that happening within Nigeria? So that's $1 million. It's not that we're not educated.
That is because Achebe was wrong. He was wrong. There is something wrong. There is something wrong with the Nigerian person. And I will explain that to you if I have the time.
I wouldn't think that there is anything wrong with the Nigerian person, because when we come to societies where there is order, we follow the rules. I will give you an anecdote. I flew to London on my way to Nigeria sometime in the past, and I was in the same plane with a high-ranked senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this man queued on the line to get into the plane, and he was following every rule to the letter. But on landing at Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja, he became a big man, and then he was jumping every other queue. So you can see in England, those people, they have order, they have rules, and these rules are implemented. But in Nigeria, the leadership have failed to implement and create such an order. So which is to say that the Nigerian person can equally obey rules when there are rules to be obeyed, and when there are sanctions that are attached to a violation of these rules. So that is what the point is.
If I am given the opportunity, I will respond.
Just wait now a little bit. Now let's take it. I want to begin from the platform that Nigerian citizens, this whole, let's just begin from there. Now, how can you talk about Nigerian citizens who see the structure you call Nigeria from the prism of their own ethnic or religious identity? How can we say that there is that it's just leadership problem when an average Nigerian, of course, disposes himself with this whole mentality of identity formation to be manipulated? I use the word manipulation, of course, in that sense. So, Dr. Michael.
Let me respond to that. These are issues that are interrelated, Jonathan, I would be suspicious of essentializing the Nigerian political character. I would be very careful, because the reason is that Nigeria's layers. Are you guys still hearing me? My internet is unstable in the classroom, not in my office. Okay, good. I'll be very careful. I'll be skeptical. I feel your anger and passion. You speak. I think we're speaking about civic education. You're speaking about moral enlightenment. People shouldn't just blame. We should take responsibility. So, Jonathan, you're coming from point of view of responsibility. We should take personal responsibility. I agree. That's not a problem.
Yeah, he's philosophizing.
Yeah, that's okay. But the point that Onyemechi mentioned, and the one I was trying to hammer here, is that I cannot avoid it. And I have to link it to this question. First of all, is that why do we have this, what I call subjective affinity to the ethno that is prior to the national consciousness? Why is that the case? I don't believe in human rights. That's why in my book, books coming out soon from Cambridge University Press, I called it Subjective Equality. Human rights is an illusion, doesn't exist. So I talk about subjective acquisition, preference. Why is it the case? Nationalism is like religion. One, that's number one. It's like religion. And so, first off, is that at the beginning, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you guys a short history, brief history of nationalism, small, 2 minutes history or a minute history. First, in the 80s, we have an identity that came through revolt against colonial era. There were people coming about. Then the first phase, second phase, during the struggles for independence, before then, that's Pan-Africanism and so on and so forth. Then we have pro-independence. Then we have the era of dictatorship. Then we have what I call era of proto-nationalism, not ethno-nationalism, proto-nationalism. This is why if a Christian burns the Quran in Pakistan, they begin to slaughter Christians in Nigeria. Donald Trump is elected in America and Christians are celebrating. Why is it the case? I'm answering your ordering. Because Nigeria is secondary. Proto-nationalism is an identity that transcends national borders. That is the neo-colonial consciousness. So that the ordering has transcended ethnicity, because why is it the case? They do not trust the civic order. Mm-hmm. They do not trust the civic order. What do they trust? They subscribe to the religious order because they think that the religious affinity is more coherent, is more moral, and this is why you see Pentecostal Christianity abusing people, as imposing violence on the people, the same thing as Boko Haram. You see these Pentecostal pastors doing the same thing that Boko Haram is doing to people, imposing different kinds of violence because what I call migration to Pax Islamica and migration to Pax Christiana. Being a Christian is more important than being a Nigerian. Being a Muslim is more important than being a Nigerian. If there is a crisis in the private sphere, it emerges into a civil war. Nigeria is a location of civil war, not on the basis of ethnicity, but because of the proto-nationalist consciousness, because this is a crucial qualification. It is the proto-nationalist consciousness that gives them a sense of meaning,
belonging,
a sense of belief, a sense of hope, not the civic state.
Okay, thank you very much, Buchi.
I'm talking about nationalism.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. I still want us to come back to our topic, and that is the question I'm throwing to you, Obunweze. And that question is, did this ethno-religious consciousness, when exactly did it emerge? Okay, Nigeria got its independence in 1960. And we had, of course, we have already said that leadership was handed over to people who were like an extension of the colonizer, okay? But then, when did actually this proto-nationalist consciousness began?
Okay.
Was it immediately Nigeria got its independence? Before its independence? When exactly?
Well, these were the imperial fault lines that Nigeria was. These are birth defects. Nigeria was born with it. Nigeria was a creature of imperial convenience. So, and prior to that, in fact, we were created by Europe. The name Africa, for example, was not African. It was given to us by the Romans, okay? And then when Europe came in Berlin, 1885, they sat down and divided African countries among themselves. So, and then they divided even brothers. We are divided into different countries. So when Nigeria came into being, the colonial masters introduced indirect rule in certain places, and in other places they engaged with the natives on another level altogether. So, and in all these places, we have seen colonialism is the creation of otherness par excellence, because the white man places himself above every other person. So the natives, and the word natives is even an ordering word. So. And then when Nigeria became independent, the colonial masters have already succeeded in telling all of us that we are different from each other. Those in the South, they introduced indirect rule, and those who gave them a run for their money in the fight for independence, and those in the North that never wanted them to leave. So, and then this dichotomy was already created, was already there at independence. You could see prior to the Independence Constitution in 1960, we heard somebody like Amadou Bello saying that they don't want the colonial masters to leave, that they are not ready for independence. That was why the independence vote was moved from 1956 to 1960 when Enahoro moved. So the South and the North of Nigeria, this congenital birth defect has been there at the birth of Nigeria, at independence. And that we saw that quickly degenerate into a civil conflagration. Okay, so, and then it has continued till date. And our failure to rectify and remedy this situation is what is at the root of the problematic we are facing today across board, and all the agitations and all the conflagration we are having across board all over Nigeria. So we have not been able to resolve this. We should have done that. We are Africans. We could have resolved that on a dialogue table. But for the politicians, it pays to keep these enclaves alive, to keep fanning these flames. It pays them in political capital. So they need it to galvanize their bases to come to power. And then they need to create that enemy profile. Those guys are our enemies. So if you vote for me, then I will keep these enemies at bay. And overall, Nigerian politicians are very good in deploying.
Yeah, we will come exactly to that. But I am asking you a follow-up question with what you just said. Now, can you make a distinction between ethno-religious fanaticism and ethno-religious victimization that goes a long way, or with maintenance of group identity?
Well, the point is that where you find one, you find the other. Because for you to be an ethno-religious fanatic, that means that you are ready to go out of your way to create otherness, to treat others that are not like you as garbage to be flushed down the toilet. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. The Islamic fanatic up north, that when anything happens, he tries to slaughter his neighbors who are from the south. He's doing that. And even those we call victims, if you give them that kind of platform, they will inflict the same kind of damage on their aggressors as well. So, it is neither here or there. Nigeria is a very complex case, we know. But like what Onyebuchi called proto-nationalism. Proto-nationalism came with colonialism. We never knew all this about ourselves until the white men came and told us, hey, here you have Christianity, here you have a nation. So, and then that's why when we have problems, we go back to our fetal position. Our fetal position as a nation is into our ethnic, the religions that are defeated the religions of our forefathers. We just jump into them to gain some kind of succor from our problems. So that's where Nigerians came to whenever they are unsure of what the state has to offer them. We don't trust the state anymore. So what is the next option? They just go into their religion or into their tribes. And these tribal enclaves are ready to war against each other at the moment. That's the problem.
Yeah, thank you. That brings me to you, Dr. Jonathan. In one of your articles, you wrote about ordering, reordering, and deordering. And in fact, at the beginning of your statement, you quoted that book. But you said something in that text where you said that ordering had led to reordering. Okay, where you say that when the victim of ordering responds with this identification strategy to counter identity constructed for them by the norm. My question is, how does this apply to incidents involving Fulani herdsmen, Boko Haram, and the rising voices for self-determination like IPOB, Oduduwa Republic, Southern Kaduna Forum, Middle Belt Forum, including Niger Delta insurgency?
Okay, thank you very much. First, there is this belief by many analysts that different ethnic nationalities in Nigeria cannot coexist anymore, given what has happened in the last 50, 100 years or so of the national history. There are some truths about that, but the reason why they cannot, it seems very difficult for them to coexist. It's not because of the diversity in language and religion. It's just because of poverty of the mind. It's as simple as that. because the Fulani man who wants to see the rest of Nigeria as a territory to be conquered, just like their grand patriarch Othman Danfodio did, is thinking of himself as a norm, and then the rest of the people as the normalized. There is this binary opposition that that is a feature, strong feature of his mindset. The Hausa man that calls the Igbo man, that orders the Igbo man by the deplorable identity of a Nyamere. All right, Igbo man that does the same to Yoruba man, the deplorable identity, disidentification called Femman. As the case may be in different parts of the country, you know, they are doing so from the poverty of the mind. They believe that what it all means to be a human being and enjoy the rights of existence is manifested in their own religion, in their own ethnic group, in their own linguistic group, in their own cultural locale, and what have you. They are unable to transcend that mental poverty, that mental body, mental borders, the mental borders. You know, they're unable to transcend it, to see humanity as humanity, irrespective of where it manifests. They're unable to do that. And there are some factors that can enable a people or an individual to be able to transcend that. One important one is education. And by education, I don't mean schooling. Okay, Onyebuchi was talking about those who have schooled, who have a lot of education from Cambridge and from Stanford. It is perfectly possible to go to school, obtain the best certificate from the best university in the world without being educated, without being enlightened. It is perfectly so. And we see that in the character of the actors at the Nigerian stage of leadership and everywhere. All right. Now we are talking of a country where you cannot trust, credibility of character is a problem. You start off a business and you want people to manage it, they will loot it down. All right. Why? Because they have this myopic view of understanding a human relationship. They think that in helping themselves with your money, they enrich themselves. They forget that when that company goes down, they will be out of job. Because they don't have that understanding, that enlightenment. They can see far. That also applies in human relations across different nationalities. The senator who talks about, who queued up in London and then arrives Abuja and became a big man and all that. It is still the same mindset, poverty of the mind. It thinks that because he has arrived at a certain position in government, then he's all powerful. Why are they, the leaders, really bastardizing the institutions in the country? Why are they weakening the institution and making themselves powerful individuals? A functional society needs strong institutions, not strong individuals. But why are they doing that? Because they lack the understanding that a weak institution will have a ripple effect, not only on the downtrodden there, but on everybody, including themselves. Now you go about in Nigeria. I am in Germany. I haven't seen any house with a fence. All right. Go around in Nigeria, you see high walls. You see people with long guns everywhere, security and what have you. The people that are jeopardized and jinx the lives of the people in the street are still the ones who can't have peace, can't have rest. They've secured themselves here and there. But if they had that little understanding that making right policies, not influenced by ethnic and religious cleavages, making correct policies and implementing them to the letter without sabotaging it, if they had that little understanding, they would do the right thing. But then, hey, let us talk about the process of their emergence as leaders. Onyebuchi said properly in a correct way that really these people were they really elected? We know the problem of rigging of election in Nigeria. We know all that. But then, who can stop that? You're not expecting them, those who are taking advantage of the system, to put themselves, rig the election and put themselves in power to stop it. No. The followership have a responsibility to play, the role to play. But are they playing it? Can they play that role? You give a woman a bag of salt, of insult, and the woman will give out her voter's card, all right, and sing and go home, and then complain for the next 4 years or 8 years. Does such a woman have the understanding that her action and inaction during election is what amounting to the consequences that she is experiencing, that her children are going to experience, children are going to experience? She does not have that enlightenment.
But you have to factor in poverty into that. Because
yes, of course,
poverty
can bend the wheel. Poverty can bend the wheel.
Yeah,
I understand that.
It's just a crazy circle run around, like the chicken egg problematic.
I don't really see it as a chicken and egg problem.
The leadership impoverishes the followership to the extent that these guys are so poor that they sell their votes to survive. And then once they sell their votes to survive, these guys get into power and keep on impoverishing the
poverty can make someone act in desperate ways. I don't doubt that.
Yeah,
all right.
And this is where I said that the leadership
when the poor had no enlightenment, when the poor had been miseducated from the family units, people are coming up. The orientation is when they will lay their hands at the helm of power and loot it down. And
I think.
And they're coming from their villages and their churches where they're celebrating criminals. Okay, these are processes of education, miseducating consciousness, and these people cannot transcend the mental borders that sees their own interest and sabotages their own interest in the return as well as the interest of the
brother. The only interest a poor man, a poor hungry man sees. The only interest a poor hungry man sees is the next meal. That's the most
it's all right.
But there's a difference between a poor man and a poor educated man. Those are two different things.
It's all right. Okay, let us wait. I want to welcome Dr. Carol. There is a misinformation with time, because of the time difference. So we're working with 6:30, but I think it was something earlier, and she was not able to join immediately. So Dr. Carol, you are welcome. I will just go over to you directly now.
I want to respond. Jonathan said a lot of things in the past 7 minutes, and I think some points need to be addressed.
Then address it.
I won't address that because Jonathan, you made a very good point about the poverty of the mind, but I wonder how that is differentiated from the criticism you label against elitist education. Poverty of the mind. Whose enlightenment? Whose education are you going to use here? You say a poverty of the mind, which is, I agree, we have poverty of the mind. Yes, I mentioned education as a possibility of access, but whose poverty, whose education, whose enlightenment? The reason why I mentioned this is because I'm very passionate about Nigeria, and I'm like you and Uchen and I want to find solution to this, concretize the experience in such a way to transform the kind of emancipatory and liberatory politics. The reason why I'm saying this is because it seems to me sometimes we conflate politics and culture, cultural approach.
And morality as well.
And morality, yeah. And this is something that's very, very problematic because we're dealing in the level of politics and also the reality of living together. And so I am so careful because when I don't want to pontificate my moral preference in a society like Nigeria, because it's going to be becoming afflicted with the same disease that I seek out to cure in the first place. And so, by the end of the day, it seems to me, I understand again your concern about the part of everybody should take responsibility, but whose enlightenment? Whose idea? Because Boko Haram have their own idea of a clarified society. Everybody has their own intention of living a good society. So who? So the concretizing is bring to the realm of politics. How then do we live together? And this, I think, that is where my interest lies. Sorry.
With that question, Dr. Eze, I want to also reconstruct it in another way, because we keep saying that we should differentiate morality or whatever from politics, and we are also at the same time saying that our leaders should take responsibility. So, and responsibility falls within the realm of ethics. So we cannot, in some ways, separate politics from ethics. I don't want to use morality. I prefer to use ethics in this context, because for each person who occupies a position, there is an expectation from that person. There is something that person owes to the public, to the citizenry. And that is what we are talking about. Okay, so I wouldn't want us to overstretch this distinction between politics and the realm of ethics, but that is not our concern here. I want to go briefly to Dr. Carol. Like I said, Dr. Carol is a sister of the Daughters of Mary, Mother of Mercy, at the moment a researcher at the Golden Gate University School of Law. I've already introduced her. Welcome once again, Sister Dr. Carol Ujoma. Now, I want to ask you, because you are an expert in war narratives, okay? And we have been talking about Nigeria and what shaped it with regard to the constellation between leadership, citizenry, and participation in terms of responsibility, or the leadership taking responsibility. And we have also talked about what shaped our country today from the onset within the formation, the colonial formation up to today. Now, my question to you is, how was the Nigerian Civil War influenced by the constitution of the order? Put on your audio, please.
It is a pleasure to be among this epistemic community, and thanks for the vibrant discussion I veered into. The concept of Nigerian politics and how war shaped it. To answer this question, I would like to go to Achebe's construction of the Nigerian politics, from his concept of where the rain started beating us. Achebe took us to the memory lane of the Berlin Conference that shaped our political fate, and when Nigeria was handed like a piece of chocolate to the British community without our choice and without our consultation, dismantling the kingdoms of Nri, Benin, Kenem Bono, the full Hausa Fulani Empire, and all the great structures of powers. And the struggle, the overtime struggle that Nigerians have embarked on to reclaim autonomy, to reclaim economic, political, and social identity of the otherness, was what led to the Nigerian Civil War. And I beg we can now, in my discussion, I would like us to see the Nigerian picture through the glass of the Sudanese conflict, because we share historical and conflict dynamics with the southern and the northern Sudan, that we are colonized by the Egyptian, the Arab Egypt, and the British condominion. And by their independence, before their independence in 1955, they have already, in 1956, they already started a war in 1955 because power was handed over to the north. The oil belongs to the south. Power, military and political power, was handed over to the northern Sudan. And the struggle to regain that power, to regain that autonomy of misconstruction, mischaracterization and identity, was what led them into almost 50 decades of war that began before independence. From the one president regime to the other, till the time of Omar Bashir, there was a struggle. There was a policy and an Islamic ideology of Arabization. And what was that? The British colonized the North and gave them Christianity. Sorry, the Southerners. While the Egyptian Arabs colonized the North, the Arabs, and gave them Islam, the Islamic religion, and they gave them power too. The Arabization policy was a policy that obliterated religion, that sought to obliterate religion, speaking of English, religious practice of the Christians, their oil economy, and their power, stripped them of all these social identities. And they fought to regain. It was a consistent fighting struggle by the Southern Liberation Army, the SPLM, South Sudanese Liberation Army. You can liken that to the IPOB of today. And the struggle was a persistent one. They were not talking about restructuring. They were talking about reclaiming their political faith. And the political faith, which is what gave vent to the Nigerian Biafran war. I beg not to use the word civil war, because for certain reasons which may not be discussed in this context, there was a country that existed. So a civil war has a connotation under the international law. It was a war of independence, a war of self-determination. It was a war to regain autonomy. It was a war to regain power. And the war has not ended. It has been an endless, even with the effort to introduce what you can call a policy of erasure in the post-conflict Nigeria, when the Gowon administration did everything possible to make sure that anything that carries the image of the sun, of the Biafran rising sun, was obliterated. That did not end the war. And the fight to regain autonomy has been in the South, it has been in the North, not in the East, not only in the Biafran territory. What you call the Islamic ideology of Boko Haram today is also a kind of socio-political fight for autonomy. People want to regain their original identity, which colonialism destroyed. And you can ask yourself, is this a right? Is this right legitimate? The international law under the United Nations Charter, in fact, the origin of the United Nations Charter was to give people rights to self-determination. And you can see that both in Chapter 1, Article 1 and 2, that it was the US President Woodrow Wilson, who championed self-determination as a condition to maintain international peace. Okay. And remember, it did not exist after it pre-existed the Second World War, because self-determination, external self-determination, was a condition for ending colonialism, giving people authority to determine their political and economic fate. This is both a human right and what we call customary international law, jus cogens. It is a preemptory norm because it is an inalienable, inherent right on people to determine.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Carol. We are still going to come to that, and because I still have to give the participants forum to ask one or two questions. So I still want us to trickle down to what we need to go home today from this discussion, and that is, now you talk about rights. So I'm going to also enter into this whole idea of right and the question of ordering. Now, there is never a day gone by without horrific stories of human cruelty against a fellow human being in Nigeria. This has been attributed to the weakness of the Nigerian state, which we have been discussing all over and over again, and the feebleness of the law, that is the critique of how law functions in our country, in Nigeria, and in fact, the absence of the rule of law. Now, I want to come back to you, Dr. Bumweze, as a legal professional, an advocate for human rights protection. What is your take on the weakness of the Nigerian state and the firmness of law with regard to the emerging violence that we experience every day in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Idika, once more. The point lies in the fact that one, you have to first of all ask the question, is Nigeria a state? Is Nigeria a nation? We have all the appearances of a state and a nation, but the agitations all over the place have made a mincemeat of that. We have come to see that we only have a shell, but what constitutes a nation? That a nation has a monopoly of violence, a state has a monopoly of violence. It doesn't exist anymore in Nigeria. So the rule of law, we obey that in the breach, as if to say we don't even have it. So which law are we obeying? Is it the Sharia law in the north, or the British common law we inherited from the colonial masters in the south? So the point lies in that one. The law is a very important instrument in the creation of any state and nation. It is Dr. Chimaconam talked about miseducation of the mind. And then we argued about the morality and politics and all the rest of it. But the most important thing in a state is that there is the rule of law. The law rules. And once there is a law that rules over everybody and everything, that creates an essential arena for the people to relate and then know that we belong to this together. Because if there is no law with sanctions, there is anarchy. Okay, so Nigeria is in a state of a quasi-anarchy at the moment because the law is obeyed in the breach by those who are supposed to make the law, by those who are supposed to interpret it, and those who are supposed to enforce it. At all these levels, we don't have it. And that shows the weakness of the Nigerian state because we don't have a state, so to say. And this is where every Nigerian is called upon. We can make Nigeria work. We can get it right if we want to.
Okay, we'll come to that, whether we can make it work or not. I come back to you, Dr. Carol, because you are also in the legal profession and you have made mention of human rights laws and so on and so forth. What is your take on this Dr. Onyemechi said the question is whether Nigeria is a state or not. So what's your take on this question of the implementation or enforcement of the law and the rule of law in Nigeria?
Yeah, I believe Dr. Franklin is what he means that Nigeria is not a state does not disprove the concept of state under the international law. Nigeria is a subject of international law as an entity that has all the characteristics of a state. It is a state. It has constitution, and I think what he means that the constitution is feeble and does not work. And when you talk about efficacy, it is not there. If you talk about what make up the constitution, you can say is lacking. But to the extent whether what we have today, the 1999 constitution, is an embodiment of the will of the people, and I doubt it is not. I doubt it is not, and if it should be a constitution, it has to be, in fact, there need to be a reformation and serious transformation that has to constitute the minds of the people. But the way I see Nigeria, whether working or not working, is just look at the image, the picture, what is happening. It does not reflect a nation that has any prospect. You see an image of the former Yugoslavia, you see an image of the former Eritrea and Ethiopia, you see an image of the former Southern and Northern Sudan. Okay. When people face certain situation and there is need to seek a solution, you don't pamper it or scatter scramble around it. Give it a name. Conflict must be given a name. It must be characterized. There is a precedent, and we have to look at the precedents on the international political structures who have gone through our experience, people who have gone through our situation. How did they resolve their problem?
Okay,
South Sudan went through a war, and the post-war was a peace agreement. The peace agreement was followed by a referendum. The referendum was followed by a determination of people's fate. Working is still the same post-colonial process of a marriage of convenience between incompatibles. Okay. That's the way I see the Nigerian situation.
Thank you very much. Another issue now, we are talking about rights, and we are talking about also how media is used to distribute or to communicate some of these issues. That brings me to the question of freedom of speech and how the order is being constructed in the media, how the order is being constructed in the public space, how the media, how citizens now represent the orderness they experience every day in the polity. So I come back to you, Dr. Eze. How would you characterize freedom of speech in the Nigerian context with reference to ordering, and where should there be a limit, or should there be a limit or no limit to freedom of speech?
No, ordering is a very fancy philosophical term. It doesn't really, it's not concretized. I know what it is. It's one of those philosophical jargons we use all the time. It doesn't really help. I don't think it plays a lot into the practical politics of the Nigerian situation.
Really?
I want to link it to ethics, and it's very, very important. When I mentioned about morality and politics, the reason why I mentioned it again, and I insist that politics has nothing to do with morality precisely because of these cultural differentiations. Morality, when it comes to politics, morality is an agenda of politics, not the end of politics. Interest is what motivates politics. And it is the interest that you negotiate, not the morality. So when we put people there, it's not because they think they're moral. Nobody gives a crap about morality, but interest, so they come. So you see that in freedom of speech is coming around, because Nigeria specifically is a place whereby this cultural differentiation comes. You cannot say, well, you say what you like. I cannot say what I like. In Sokoto State today, the governor of Sokoto State decided to give 155 million to proselytize Islam. This is a civic state. To what extent can I go and tell him, well, you cannot do this, it's wrong. Nigeria is a civic state, whatever the case may be. To what extent can I really tell them that? So the point I think we need to do is developing a new attitude, towards, I don't know, I don't want to go into the realm of human rights, into the realm of speech, but trying to engage this order in their own location and whatever the case may be, understanding, in their otherness. Because within that behavior or whatever he does, there is internal rationality, there is coherence. It's not nonsensical, it's not stupid. From point of view of my own side, he might say whatever he likes. I say, oh, how can you say this stupid thing? How can you do this? I'm angry. But there is internal rationality and justification to that he's doing. And it is that interest, that internal rationality, that justification within what he does is what we should engage with. I don't think it's stupid. I don't think it's poverty of the mind. I think it's just that it is how to understand it, and it has logic within it. And until you understand that logic, if you understand that logic and engage them in that logic, for final word, I do not think that about just consensus. I speak about subjective conversion. It's religion in the Latin word, religare, it binds them. They believe in it. It's meaningful for them. It is meaningful. So you don't engage with a racist. You don't engage with a fanatic. You seek for subjective conversion, not consensus. Dialogue cannot succeed without subjective conversion.
Okay, before I come to Jonathan to respond to you, so are you saying that this rationality can also make people to legitimize violence against the other person?
Yeah, exactly, because it's meaningful to them. It is meaningful.
Then are we admitting that are we justifying the violence just because the person who carried it out?
I'm not I am not. I'm not justifying any violence. That's not justification for violence. I am trying to invite you to begin to think that rationality is provincial. Rationality is provincial. It's shaped by culture. It's shaped by religion, by other experiences. So that when you speak about rationality, it could be, okay, it's logical for you. It's meaningful for you as a Roman Catholic. Certain things you do have coherence for you as a Roman Catholic norm. Other people in their own private spheres do certain things that would think is stupid, but within their culture, within their own it is still rationality. I do not justify violence because from my own point of view,
okay,
it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not justifying violence. No.
Okay, I would have asked a further question on that, but I want to go back to Jonathan to respond to your idea of provincializing rationality and how conversation, how negotiation is possible if there is no common ground of understanding how we rationalize things. Please, Dr. Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Onyebuchi said that rationality is provincial in that it is shaped by culture, shaped by religion, and all those things. I agree. I agree. All right. But then this culture, this religion, and all the appurtenances that shape this rationality are also forms and channels of education of that mind. Okay, you said that that these problems, this ordering problem challenging Nigeria is not something that can be alluded to the poverty of the mind. All right, but then again, you said that people only need to understand the logic of how these things. Well, you need the mind to understand the logic. All right, and what am I trying to say? As a question of rule of law that has formed the basis of the discussion in the last couple of minutes. The law does not enforce itself. The law is enforced by human beings. All right, and an individual who does not understand the importance of rule of law cannot enforce the law. It's as simple as that. You've got to understand the importance of what you want to do before you do it. All right, so those who violate the law, the other time there was a news about the Fulani headers raiding some community in Enugu State, and the governor of Enugu State called the GOC commanding 82 Division, and the GOC told him, "You've got to fund the presidency, it's out of my hand." And he fought the presidency, and he was kept waiting. Eventually, he was asked to call back and all that, and for hours he couldn't get any response. And then the headers raided and killed some people, and then communities now mobilized to go and fight them off, and within 20 minutes of that mobilization, the army was dispatched from Enugu, the police was dispatched, and they went to prevent the community from fighting of these people. Okay, now the individual in Katsina, the governor in Katsina, who have allocated monument for useful project to some promotion of fundamentalism of different kinds in religious ways. These are people believe that they are doing the right thing. Okay, they believe that they're doing the right thing as a result of the poverty of their minds. And I want to say it summarily here that the society is the family writ large. All right, the individual comes from a particular unit in the society, and that is a family. And from family to the village to the larger, before you get to the state, and the orientation, the education people pass through, cultural, religious, and what have you, prepare their mindsets. And this is the mindset they take with them to different aspects of governance where they find themselves, or to the society in relating with people from different other places. And I am saying that failure to understand that the human being as an individual shares a relationship ought to share a harmonious, complementary relationship with human beings in different ways, different places, seeing themselves as not just a part of a certain small cultural or religious border, but as part of the larger humanity. Until you transcend the mindset of this bordering, until the human beings are educated from childhood, and I don't mean learning 1 + 1. I am talking about the fundamentals of what it means to be human being in the world, not what it means to be a human being from a particular linguistic group, a human being from a particular cultural group, or from one religious sect and all that. No, we've got to educate the citizenry. And this is where we ought to begin. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And there's no way we can get it right. People who, when that fails, that is what we see in Nigeria, where people in power weaponize the law instead of enforcing the law to build strong institutions. All right. When there are strong institutions, people do what they are supposed to do because they know that when they violate it, the law will catch up with them. All right. But where there is very weak institutions, somebody, a politician was talking the other day about some things that have happened about governors, briefly about governors and politicians who looted a lot of money. You know, one from the north looted a lot of money, and then the FCC caught him, and then the next day, Islamic clerics and prominent people went to see the president, and then the matter ended. The same thing happened with a governor from the south. It happens every day. EFCC is catching people, but then they are walking free every day because the law is weak. The institution is weak. These people don't understand what it means, what the rule of law means. We've got to get it right at the level of education. It's the poverty of the mind. And it's everywhere. It doesn't matter how big your certificate is or where you obtained it. If you don't have that ability to transcend that averageness, that border, that mental border, you are limited. And that is why followership is poor. They can't do what they are supposed to do. And leadership are having a...
Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan. I think we should be wrapping up. I have a lot of hands up on the Facebook, on the YouTube channel. A lot of questions are coming up. But I have just one final question, please, for the panelists. And then just have a little patience for us to take 1 or 2 questions. And then we'll go. I am begging you for that. So first of all, is there no hope for Nigeria? That is the main question. Is there no hope for Nigeria? And with differentiation between us and them, we and they, which has become a recurring decimal in the different media outlets, okay, resulting in an increase in violence-prone situations. Is the ordering possible? And how? Can the ordering overcome the challenges? I mean, Dr. Jonathan is talking about going beyond the borderline, transcending. So how do we deal and respond to the political misfortune that generates grievances that ends up creating this differentiation of us and them and we and they? I will begin with you. Please make your statement just very short. I'll begin with Franklin Obumweze.
Well, I believe there is hope for Nigeria. There is hope in the sense that there are a lot of alliances being created at the moment. I saw that firsthand on my last journey to Nigeria. There is a handshake across the Niger. There is a handshake from the Middle Belt towards the south, and people are coming to realize, even among the core North Fulani Kanuri alliance, there are some people who are telling the central government that Nigeria is greater than the government in power. So we can see there are movements towards that. There could be the ordering, but we have to make a conscious effort to talk to each other. Because I always say this, shooting and killing each other or going to war over Nigeria is not worth it, okay? Why should we kill each other when we can talk to each other? Once we can sit down on a table of dialogue and iron out our differences, there will always be hope for Nigeria. I'm an optimist as that.
Okay, thank you very much. I go over to you, Dr. Carol Ujoma. Your audio, please.
I think the hope for Nigeria is very slim. The Nigeria I saw as a child is currently hanging on a perforated nest. Unfortunately, the problem the tragic problem of ordering is very endemic and it permeates every structure of the society. I became the other when I took the jam to go into the university, and I knew that Nigerian education is built on a disparate quota system, where one society, one ethnic cultural society is favored over the other. We need a willpower. Unfortunately, the willpower is also dissipated by the politics of ordering. America has the same structure of ordering, the white and the black, but their society is based on the rule of law. And that is why Trump's supremacist ideology, the white supremacist ideology, could not work because the rule of law prevails. And in Nigeria, where a president or a governor or a political leader steals millions, and because of the person's cultural or ethnic or religious identity, it is trivialized. Where somebody commits an impeachable offense as a leader, but because of your religious or political ideology, it is trivialized. Where people weaponize, somebody used the right word, weaponize the law. So without the rule of law being effectual and effectuated, it is impossible to build a society. No society exists without the rule of law. And that rule of law must be functional and above. Nobody should be above the law. But in Nigeria, the political leader is above the law. And you asked me about the narrative. They construct the narrative for the international policy, foreign policy. They construct the narrative for the Nigerian conflict. They build the narrative of the conflict. For Nigeria to work, we need a counter narrative. And the counter narrative must be written by an enlightened mind, by the enlightened populace, by the mind that is educated.
Thank you.
Not by the leaders who have constructed a failed state.
Thank you very much. I would have gone directly to Chimaconam because he made that statement, but I come to you, Dr. Onyebuchi, for you to make your final comment on this final session. Yeah, before.
I'm an optimistic in the case of Nigeria. I don't think, I know there's so much pain, so much anger, so much bitterness. Tribalism is a reality in Nigeria. But also religious nationalism is a reality. And it's so painful and so sad. We see that every day. But I am an optimistic, and I think we're going to be better off trying to figure a way of moving to the future. I think that's something that the last speaker said here that I want to latch on now. It's about a counter narrative. That's what I have been always promoting. And what is this counter narrative? I think let's give it a content. The content of this counter narrative, but like sister, I'm optimistic. So it would be what I call common sense nationalism. What I call common sense nationalism. I don't think we need Rousseau or Hedda or the Stokes to teach us about nationalism. As a historian, I think the problem we already had is that we had already educated and made a nation that is alienated from our own experiences and context. So we borrowed, we always address ourselves, the nation state, the state inherited is a state that is modeled for a society different from ours. And it's kind of given nationalism, given statehood. So then we have a common sense nationalism that emerges from the context and history and experience of the people. The same thing with democracy, that speaks to our own stories, that reflects our stories and experience and vagaries of circumstances. So we can't run away. We have no other place. And now. And I mean, I understand what Jonathan means by poverty of the mind, but I don't think it's because of, I don't think we're not capable. I don't think we're not capable. I think it's just that there's no hope. And if we can, a leader to inspire hope, people believe that Nigeria is a possibility, that look, we can have this identity we can be proud of. And then there's that kind of there's going to be that kind of sequence, that kind of a coherence between my identity as an individual person and echoing JFK. What can Nigeria do for me? Not what I can do for Nigeria, what Nigeria can do for me. Not just the piece of cake, national cake, but contributing to building a society that has my identity, has my story for the future, for the past. So common sense nationalism is, I think, it's what we need. And once we have it and share that metaphysical aspiration and theological aspiration, you see that all this thing will fall away. The differences will begin to evaporate. So wow, we believe in it. Okay, Sister mentioned something about going to jump. Just one last word. I didn't study Nigeria, so I never wrote that in Nigeria, but I have an idea of this ethnicity. When I did police whatever, something for my citizenship in the US, they asked me of ethnicity in Nigeria. I just wrote Nigerian. I didn't write my language. I wrote Nigerian. And they laughed. I said, yes, I'm Nigerian. If it's not good enough for you, then deal with it. So common sense nationalism. We all own Nigeria. It belongs to all of us.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will hear Dr. Jonathan right now. Then we'll just take 2 questions and then we'll go, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I wish I could be as optimistic as my co-panelists. In studying Nigeria, I see no problem in being hopeful, but there is very little optimism. For Nigeria to aggregate the type of intelligences required to form the critical mass that can bail it from this quagmire, it's going to take roughly 500 years. 500 years. The problem in Nigeria is complex. It's not just ethnicism. It is mired in religious bigotry as well. How do you untie these two, separate them, and then begin to cure the mind of these diseases? It's very difficult. And the best bet I can see is really things beginning to turn bright from 500 years from now. And the question is that really a time frame that we'll be proud to bequeath to our children? It's not. It's not. Let's be frank about this whole thing. It's not. I am also not saying that separating Nigeria, people going their different ways, would solve the problem. No, these same mindsets are already there. They will just go and reconstitute themselves in different ways. Okay? The problem is that one problem could be eliminated. That of religious bigotry might be eliminated for some regions if Nigeria is dismembered. The problem of religious bigotry might be eliminated. So you now have the ethnic component for these different new countries to deal with. Okay, which again might shorten the duration of time frame required to get it right to roughly about 100 years, 150 years. But ultimately, we need to reconstitute to our school system and our social institutions, our cultural institutions, all channels of education. They need to be reconstituted, and government cannot do this for you because the government is run by, like I said, a cult of ignoramuses. They don't even know this. It's something that you and I, if you think that you've got those who have, and this is practical, those who have intelligences that are above average, all right, are those who are in a position to understand those who are in a position to transcend the ethno, those who are in a position to look at things not from the perspective of who is related to them, my uncle, my brother, my village man, my party, my ethnic group, my language. Okay, you need people with above average intelligence to understand this. And those are the people who should form the critical mass and draw up strategy to go down there and begin to implement this, to begin to cultivate a new generation that might be able to put this in practice. Nigeria cannot move forward from that. It's going to continue going backwards. 20 years from now, if some of us are still alive, we will remember this thing I'm saying. What is coming is worse than where we are today. Because that who is going to bail the cat?
It can get
from the top to the bottom. Who is there? It doesn't matter the education we have. All right,
Okay.
people turn up and say they are professors, elect me as president. This one turn up and said, and you ask yourself, that professor, you investigate his past, okay, becoming a professor and all that. How has he related to human beings? It's a question of relationship informed by your understanding of what humanity is. If you don't have that intelligence that is above average, you can't understand all those things. You can see things in their clearer light. You
aristocracy the answer.
blinded and blindfolded by all these ethnic luggage and all that. And they will shape you. It doesn't matter the certificate.
Thank you very much.
Right?
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank
Jonathan.
you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chimaconam. And
Thank you, Jonathan.
Wait, I just want to take just 2 questions so we can end this thing. I mean, I don't want us to stay more than extra 30 minutes here. So I have 2 hands up and I have some questions on the Facebook channel, YouTube channel, which I will collect the questions together. And then you will respond to 2 minutes, please. So we don't go beyond that. I will call on Aribia Ato to give to ask his question.
Okay, thank you so much, Christiana, and thank you to all the speakers for a wonderful panel discussion. I'll just go straight to my question. I share in Jonathan's pessimism, but my question is for those who are optimistic. How do we practicalize? You know, we've talked a lot, we've talked about the problems and everything, but then how do we practicalize the solutions? How do, you know, the intelligent few, as Jonathan would say, how would they break into power? Seeing that power in Nigeria is mired in violence and corruptions and all sorts of things. How do they get into power without getting stained? How do we train our leaders practically? Because it is necessary for them to be moral and all that, but it is not sufficient. They must know how to, you know, navigate the corridors of power, how to navigate relationships, and how to actually lead. It's not about just being moral. So how do we teach them? Who teaches them? And the present situation here in the country, lots of things happening, insecurity, I live in constant fear. How do we solve these problems now? You know, do you think an ideology is necessary at this point to guide the thinking of the masses in terms of voting rights or holding their leaders accountable? What type of ideology would be necessary? You know, but this is for those who are optimistic. I perfectly share in Jonathan's pessimism. I don't think
that question, and I will call on Jessica to ask her question. I will collect just the questions, then we go through to answer them.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a very wonderful opportunity to discuss this important topic, and I want to thank you all. My question is, I thank those who are optimistic that Nigeria is going to work. Everything is possible, but then I want to ask you, how do we, and one of you mentioned restructuring, how do we get the present Nigerian government to accept and approve the idea of restructuring? And when it doesn't work, what should be the next step? What is the next solution?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sister Rose Claret, make your question very quick. Sister Mary Rose Claret. Okay, well,
yes, I said I am the one who pushed for restructuring. So my question is, how do we push for a restructured Nigeria? Because I still believe that there is unity in diversity, and I still believe that yes, we all come from various cultures, but I believe that if we work as a structured Nigeria, and each structure or each region is left with their own resources, with their own police, just to manage themselves and contribute to the center, so that power is divided, you know. So then I believe strongly that once there is a restructured Nigeria, that Nigeria will work like United States of America, or even like Germany here, where you know that Bayern has always wanted to move out of Germany, but they are still here and everybody is contributing, you know. So I believe strongly that once there is a restructured Nigeria, that things will work perfectly well for us. So my question is, how do we push for a restructured Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. And then two questions from, I will just take two from the questions here which are relevant. And that is, first of all, somebody was asking about the governance we have before colonialism and whether that could be an alternative, whether it could be an alternative, whatever that governance system was. And the last question was, of course, what is the way forward? So I now open up for answers. I will begin again from Franklin. Please make your answers very short. We must.
Well, I'm gonna be real quick. For those who are uncomfortable with the fact that we are optimistic about Nigeria, we are not naive not to know the complexity of the problem we are facing. But can you tell me in history of humanity, any country that never passed through difficult times to get to where they want to get to? The point is, a restructured Nigeria could lead Nigeria on the path towards development. But we have to understand that Nigeria is a part of a globalized world today. And you don't rule out the external factors that are trying to bring Nigeria to her knees. This is the dimension that we're not looking at. The problems we're having in Nigeria, we're having the same problems in Mali. We're having the same problems in Burkina Faso, till we're having the same problems in the Congo. We're having the same problems in the Central African Republic and in Mozambique, and it's going towards the South African basin. So what are we seeing? We can see some external hands that are trying to continually teleguide African economies. So we should not lose sight of that. And we can see what Boko Haram and all these agitations are doing. You don't know who is financing who, but that is on the external level. But we have to do our homework as a people. Look at how beautiful and how arable Nigeria is. We are saying, let us go our separate ways. But most of these tribal enclaves that want to go their separate ways cannot even sustain themselves. The Hausa said they are not supplying yams again to Igbo land. And then we were in trouble, but we want to go. I want everybody, self-determination is a fundamental human right, is okay. But we have to speak to each other to agree whether we want to be together or not. We understand the complexity, but we are optimistic. We have what it takes to make Nigeria work. But the point is whether we have the political will to do that. It's not only about an aristocracy, like my brother Chimaconam said, people of average intelligence. No, we have every measure of intelligence in every community. And leadership is there to bring all this to work together. Coming to how do we push for a restructured Nigeria? Buhari has only 2 years in office. And my office, the Christian Solidarity International, is working together with across so many Nigerian communities and across so many political platforms to keep on pushing for devolution of power in Nigeria. It's going to happen because the movement is there. Whether Buhari likes it or not, he has just only 2 years in office. And Nigerians are sick and tired of the present structure. So the earlier we start talking, the better for all of us, or else we will end up in the battlefield. So there are things that are happening. I can understand that Nigerians are poor, hungry, and angry. It is normal that we've lost hope in the system. But we shall see.
Thank you very much.
A united Nigeria is better in all our overall best interest than a divided and a split up Nigeria. That's the way I see things.
Okay, good. I want to listen to Dr. Eze, Onyebuchi Eze, on that, on the questions.
Yeah, I think these are very important questions, and I cannot just one or two reflections on one of them, a few of them. Way forward is to play the politics. I speak as a political scientist now. It's politics. It's a politics. So if you are, I think one of the things that let me just say this ex cathedral, that the leader of whatever would have been politics. That's the way you play politics. Politics is not about being the good guy. It's about interest. Again, it's interest and knowing how to play the chess game and stuff like that. Now, hope is not optimism, of course. Optimism means action, doing that action. Yeah. But my final word here is to recognize that the wheelbarrow pusher, outside wheelbarrow pusher in Kano is not your enemy. He's not the enemy. The farmer in Katsina is not the enemy. And you'll be surprised that this Fulani herdsmen, the cattle, probably owned by some Yoruba or Igbo senator in northern Nigeria, own them. And so you see that, so we need to have this kind of conflict for the power that be to remain. I'm not stupid to suggest that optimism is action, means that everything is solved. But we need to recognize that the people we see as our immediate enemy are not the enemies. I think that's the first point of departure. We are all casualties of the system. That was the first thing I started with. Because we are all casualties of the system. And being aware of that is actually a point of view, is a starting point of dialogue. It's a point of view, begin to see, well, maybe if we see that we're the same, we're the same, we have the same experience, we have the same issue, we're oppressed by the same elite. Elitist racism is what it is. Then maybe we have a place of maybe moving forward. Yes, it can be done. It can be done. It's politics. Again, it's politics. Knowing how to do the politics. And I'm a scholar, not a politician. But playing the politics.
Thank you.
The Southern,
Thank you very much.
The Southern East governors, they fail it. The leaders in the South East, they failed it. They woefully failed playing politics.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that final statement. I'm sure all of us here, the panelists, none is a politician also. They are all scholars. I will come to you, Dr. Carol Ujoma. Make your statement on this question. Please, I'll beg again, we should be brief so we can just round off. Your audio.
Nigerians missed it from the onset because the country called Federal Republic never enjoyed the characteristics of a federation in its strict sense of the word. If Nigerians want to restructure, it's important to go to the status quo. Is Nigeria a federation? What are the elements of a federal entity? You can look at states who are federal and democratic. Look at states like America, the United States, how they operate. Somebody asks a question about getting the police, getting their own people managing their own resources. I think for Nigeria to work, if it can ever work, is re-empowering a law that will make a state functional and reinforcing a rule of law that will restore hope to the sovereign state of Nigeria. And it requires a thorough, conscientious, and committed constitutional review. For instance, what we call the immunity clause that gives the leaders almost a perpetual shield from crime, from accountability. For Nigeria to work, I think it requires, if not, I don't want to be as pessimistic as Jonathan, but it may require decades of committed work. And that being the case, if it cannot work, I think it's important for people to find the truth where it lies, to give opportunity for entities to be. If the Northern Islamic person does not believe in my own kind of law and politics, why must I force to be in the same entity with the person? He doesn't believe in my own kind of leadership and politics. In the United States, I still use US because it's a heterogeneous society. States have their laws. Whether you are a Muslim, this is a society that has different kinds of ethnic group and people of different originality, but yet they have one law. If somebody in the North does not believe in my kind of law and politics, why must we be together? It will
some of us have other engagements and must leave. So I give the microphone to Jonathan to, at least I want you to say something about the ordering, which you wrote in your text with regards to our topic today, and then we'll come to an end. So we make it quick so that people can leave.
Thank you very much. In my research, I have profiled a solution that partially a solution that I called deordering. all right? Ordering being stratification of identities into in and out groups, superior and inferior and what have you. And then reordering being a kind of fight back by those who have been ordered. And I've used the cliches such as Offenman and the rest of them to describe that. And then deordering is now the process of re-educating the mind. Re-educating the mind from where the idea of ordering comes from in the first place. If you've got to get it at its root, its source. Ordering is not something in the air. It is the mindset of people, Nigerians. It is the mindset, and you've got to change that mindset through all channels of education, as I said. Now, I believe, I agree with those who have stated that restructuring. Somebody asked a question about restructuring. How do we restructure? And another person asked a question about the pre-colonial system of governance, whether these things would be of help. Let me briefly comment on this and submit. The pre-colonial system of governance was designed for small communities, all right? And they worked in that regard. They can't work in industrial societies that we have today, modern industrial societies we have today. So we need a new type of ideology and system of government, and they have enforced democracy on us. Why is democracy failing in different parts of Africa? Why is it failing? Because democracy has its weaknesses. Number one, it rises on the crest of majoritarian principle. Okay. Number two, it rises on the crest of rule of law and strong institutions and what have you. Now, if the majority in any society can be described as foolish majority, brutally and in its raw form, who do not understand what rule of law means, who do not understand the importance of strong institutions, who do not understand all these things, democracy cannot work. It will be abused. Now, for restructuring, if we restructure, that's fine. But let us ask ourselves, the governors in different states, the local government chairman persons in different places, who have a certain range of power, what have they done with those powers? That is also how the law that we have in Nigeria, what have we done to enforce those laws? If we restructure, in fact, I dare say that the more liberal our constitution, people are saying that this our constitution is military, is this and this. The more liberal our constitution in Nigeria, given the present constitution of the minds of Nigerians, the worse Nigeria is going to become. You need the proper mindset to handle freedom and rights and autonomy. You need a certain level of intelligence to manage those things. They are not wonderful gifts. They need to be managed. And since we do not have that, I don't want to describe myself as a pessimist, as I said. I laid out my political analysis, all right? It's going to take us roughly 500 years to begin to get it right. But if we divide the country, we are going to eliminate at least one problem. You've come to the South, you eliminate religious bigotry. Since majority are Christians, you eliminate that. So you now have ethnicism to deal with, which will reduce the number of years it might take to get there. But ultimately,
inter-ethnic bigotry, interdenominational.
Yes, that's the problem I said that will be left. That's the problem that will be left. It's easier to manage a state with ethnic problems, okay, than a state with ethnic mad in religious problems.
No,
okay,
but that doesn't solve the religious problems too, because the religious, the CMS and the Catholics will still be at each other's necks.
Yes, but the dichotomy between CMS and this is not as strong as the one between Christians and Muslims.
Okay, it's all right.
We've got to take all this into account. Thank you very much, all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I want to thank you, Dr. Franklin Obumweze, for bringing our time to be on this discussion. I want to thank you, my sister, Dr. Carol Ujoma, for all the inconveniences because of time difference from the US. I want to thank you, Dr. Jonathan Chimaconam. I'm sure you have a lot of things to do where you are in Tübingen, and for bringing out time. And for Dr. Michael Onyebuchi Eze, he's running out for his lectures. I am so grateful that you are here. All my participants, I'm sure many want to say something, many wants to ask questions. And of course, there are also questions that we couldn't take. I am so grateful, but we are going home with one thing or two or three things. And that is one thing, that we need to be human. And we need to be human. Being human is something the Africans have always claimed, that we are more human than the rest of the world by all our ideologies, our ontologies, our cosmology, that we are human. Then we need to really be human, to be able to talk with each other over our differences and not manipulate our differences to create and legitimize violence. We need to deorder, we need to deconstruct our perception. We need to also evaluate again the law that we are having. I'm sure a lot of work are going on to make sure we update what we have today as a constitution. But whether Nigeria has a future, whether Nigeria is going to exist as it is, or whether Nigeria is going to exist in a parallel form, we need to renegotiate it, where we'll be able to be willing to come to table to think and talk about our future and how to participate in building a new concept, our own concept of a nation. And I think that should be the way forward. Thank you for the conversation, and I believe that this conversation will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for constituting the epistemic community. That's a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.